In my early 40s, I was extremely arrogant about bone health. It was honestly something I never thought about. I just made assumptions based on my exercise history that my bones will be perfect. Like, I've been doing resistance training since I was 18, so my bones will be awesome. And I arrogantly progressed on in through my 40s, continuing to train hard, being aware of bones as being an issue, but that was something for old people down the track when they're 80. Don't worry about that for now. Until I think about maybe 12 to 18 months ago, I went and visited my doctor, as I do regularly, because I have a number of conditions that she's helping me manage. And on one of my standard blood test reports, which I've done wearing my other nutrition hat, I've done quite an extensive amount of training in pathology interpretation. So I can look at those blood test results and know what they're telling me about myself. So one of the things that you'll even see on your standard blood test is calcium. Now, we might assume if we haven't been trained that you see calcium on there and it somehow relates to the calcium that we're eating. And if you're in the normal range, then you're all okay. But that's not necessarily the case. That particular measure of calcium is actually the amount of calcium you have in your blood, and it's extremely tightly regulated. So on the top 4 of those things on your pathology results, you'll rarely see them sitting outside of normal, because it often means you need to go to the hospital. So those ones are tightly regulated and they shouldn't really vary much outside of the normal ranges, unlike some of the other things in our pathology results. Now, that calcium score for me was elevated. Now, I know what that means. An elevated calcium response has got nothing to do with the amount of calcium I've been eating in my diet, and everything to do with the fact that something is going on in my body that is telling my body to start removing calcium out of my bones. That was a very big wake-up call for me. Now, normally what's involved in that is your parathyroid gland, which regulates calcium, and somehow it had gotten a message that I didn't have enough calcium, or there was inadequate calcium circulating around in my blood for all of the jobs it needed to do, and that scared me. Now, the positive thing about that is that it got me very excited about bone health, and it is super important. Now, as I started to deep dive into understanding more about the nutritional components as well as the exercise components of bone health, I understood how both of those things come together to optimize your bone health. So my mentor, Rachel Arthur, who I've done a lot of clinical mentorship over the last few years, talks a lot about different elements of bone health: magnesium, vitamin D, exercise, these kind of things. So I had the opportunity to be exposed to some of the biochemistry around optimizing bone health, and that further, got me interested in sort of understanding how it all works. So it's a bit of a passion project for me now, and as you'll hear at the end of my little talk tonight, I'm actually going to be specifically developing a program designed to elevate your interest in your own bone health, perhaps even the bone health of your kids and your families, as you understand, that peak bone health is achieved for women around 35, but the optimal bone development and bone growth happens prior to the age of 18. So our kids, we really need to be focused on all of the things I'm going to tell you as the over 40s woman. It's sort of relevant for the kids as well. Optimal nutrients, the right type of nutrients, and appropriate load-bearing exercise to stimulate bone growth. Now, let's talk about it. Osteopenia, what does that mean? Well, it means that for your age group and compared to other like people in the similar age group and the same sex as you, that your bone density is lower than they would like. Now, the downside with this is that most of the time, you will probably know this, that bone density testing doesn't really get done until like you're over 55, 60, 65. And it only gets done, as I understand, under the age of 60 if something's happened. Perhaps you've got a really strong family history of early onset osteoporosis, or perhaps you've had a fall and a fracture already, so they might do a bone density test for you. But if you don't, then you often don't get the opportunity to find out that you have low bone density until it's too late. Now, I want to myth bust. Once your bone architecture has broken down or your bone density has diminished, you can't actually get that back. So that should scare us a little bit, but more motivate us to actually get onto this at a younger age. So osteopenia, lower bone density than you should have for your age and for your sex. Osteoporosis is what comes next. So low bone density turns into a loss of bone strength and architecture. And, you know, 1 in 2 women over the age of 60 have osteoporosis. That's 50% of our female identifying population. It's crazy. And again, I was arrogant, so I might be sitting where you are. We think it's for old people. It's just the old ladies that have osteoporosis and the humps. We could, even those of us that consider ourselves fit and healthy and exercising, could have this insidious loss of bone happening underneath the surface, and we don't even know about it. So that's when I was researching today as well. 1 in 2 women over 60. That's only 10 years away from me. I was a bit alarmed. I was like, my coffee intake probably needs to drop a little bit. Now, as I said, by the time you find out that you've got a loss of bone integrity or bone density, it's often too late. You're not then looking to exercise and to the nutritional therapies that I'm going to mention to rebuild bone. That's not how this works. We're basically then at that point trying to stop the deterioration. But you are left with the state of whatever your bones are in when that osteoporosis is discovered. I don't want that for you. I want you to be heading into your older age. And when I say older age, I'm talking 60 plus here. This is not 90, 60 plus here, and have amazing bone health. Now, second thing that's really important to know, probably third or fourth thing actually. Anyway, postmenopause, and I am right in there. So I'm perimenopausal, on the cusp of menopause. Once you've hit menopause, get this. We lose about 1% of our bone per year prior to that. After menopause, can be up to 2% per year for the next 14 years because of your loss of estrogen. That's 28% on top of whatever you've already deteriorated before that. That should alarm us and get us to really have a call to action here. We don't want to wait until it's too late to find out. So what can you do? Well, first I want to talk about nutrients. Now, most of us know about magnesium, vitamin D, and the one that gets talked about a lot, calcium, as being integral to bone health. And they are. And I'm only going to really cover those 3 tonight because they're the big ones. And they're the ones that, to be honest, almost all of my clients are low in all of those nutrients. So, number 1, magnesium. That's probably the one. Magnesium and vitamin D in my client population are probably equally as poor as each other. So you need magnesium to convert vitamin D into its active form. So even if you're taking some vitamin D, if you're low in magnesium, you may not have enough after it's done all the other activities that it does in your body. The small amount that you're taking in may not be enough to convert vitamin D to its active form. And you need active vitamin D to send a message to your digestive system to absorb calcium. So you might be eating a lot of calcium, but because you've got either a magnesium or a vitamin D deficiency or both, you might be spending all this time taking in calcium and absorbing very little of it. So again, you'd be deluded in thinking, I'm good, I'm taking my calcium supplementation, my giant tablets, or I'm eating heaps of sardines and I'm chewing on the bones. Well, guess what? You've neglected your vitamin D and your magnesium, and you may still be not a lot further ahead. So it's important to get the right balance. What else can I tell you? Yes, so diet. when I put together my program, which I am going to release probably in the next 4 weeks, I'm almost finished it. I will have a nutritional protocol in there, including supplementation that you can take to support the nutritional component of optimizing your bone health. So just quickly, alkalizing diet, what does that even mean? Well, most people understand the concept of I might be too acidic, or, the idea of something being buffered or alkaline. Well, processed foods and inadequate vegetable intake will likely leave you over here on the more acidic side of things. An alkalizing diet, includes plenty of plant-based foods to really help, and not too much protein, although for most of the people that I see, that's not really a problem. Obviously, adequate bone health nutrients. I've listed 3, but there's lots and lots of others. A whole food diet. Processed foods often contain ingredients that are either not helpful to your gut, so it can cause gut inflammation. They also contain a lot of sodium. Sodium is very bad for your bone health. And so if we stick with a whole food diet and we do most of that food prep at home, we're already going to be halfway there. And one that I really struggle with, it's not alcohol, which alcohol consumption is problematic for bone health, but caffeine. Caffeine and good bone health, or too much caffeine and good bone health, don't go together. And that, to be honest, is one of the things I really even need to work on in my own life, because I love my caffeine so much, but my caffeine doesn't love me. But also the tannins in tea can be unhelpful. So we've got to really monitor that. And the one I love talking about, although I love talking about all the biochemistry, exercise. And as I spent time doing some more research today and understanding what's the evidence telling us about what the best type of exercise is for bone health, guess what? It's my top favorite too. Resistance training and yoga. They are considered the 2 best things. Now, any kind of movement is good. I'm going to celebrate if you're walking or whatever you're doing, but walking is not load-bearing exercise for your upper body, and it's also not been demonstrated to be as effective in optimizing bone health as resistance training and yoga. So we will see components of these things in the 8-week Osteo-Strong program that I'm going to be delivering. So have I covered everything? That's like an epic amount of words that I just got out there. But bone health, I want you to now care about it as much as I do. And remember the components. We want to be thinking about it early. Like by the time you're 50, you're already either menopausal or very close to being menopausal. And so estrogen has slowed right down, if not stopped. And we're starting in that bone health decline. And if all of those other habits have not been established by that time, so your diet's not overly great and your exercise routine is not overly great, then you are heading into that menopausal season with suboptimal bone health. And remember what I said, up to 2% decline in your bone architecture per year for up to 14 years. Are you rocking in the corner yet like I was? Anyway, sometimes we need a little scare like I got when I was sitting in my doctor's office having a look at that pathology result and understanding that a calcium result outside of the norm was not good news for my bones. And that immediately got my attention, and it immediately got me starting on the road to really not taking my bone health for granted. Remember what I said, that there's very little evidence of your bones declining until it's too late. We often don't get any symptoms at all that you've got osteopenia. You know, there are a few tests that we can do, and that's kind of a whole separate conversation. Some of them are tests that you can order for yourself, or you can have a conversation with your GP if you're concerned about it. But as a standard practice, bone density testing doesn't happen until you are over 60. So just think, that's 10 plus years that you've been menopausal at a loss of possibly 2% per year, plus any bone loss that you'd already sustained in the years before that. because of your dietary habits and because of your exercise habits. So we can do something about this now, and it's honestly not overly complex. And the beauty of starting this is that a bone health diet is a good diet for everything. It's a good diet for all of your organ systems, for your brain health, for absolutely everything. And starting to tackle the exercise side of things. Maybe you've known for a while that resistance training would be great, or I would love to start doing some yoga. You don't have to do everything, you just need to do something. And my 8-week program is primarily going to focus on the resistance training components. We'll see a little bit of yoga board in there as well. And I'm going to teach you how to do everything in the comfort of your own home. All of the exercises will be done so that you can do your program at home. You don't need to join a gym, you don't need to do anything else but follow the instructions that I'm going to give you. So I think that's me done. And my husband's just given me a little note saying you can join the wait list. If my 8-week program sounds interesting to you and you want to find out more about how you can optimize your bone health, then this exercise program is not just for bone health. It's going to improve your posture. It's going to make you look better because you're going to be load bearing on your body. So you're going to have more muscles, improve your shape, your core is going to get better, and the bones are kind of the downstream beneficiaries of all of the other benefits. So I finished my last 8-week program last night, and one of the things as I was consolidating and sharing with my group as they now go and run on their own is that, I'm like many women, I'm all about multitasking. So if I can throw 2 exercises together for you, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm all about the 2 for or the 3 for exercise. So we want exercise to be efficient. We want exercise to be fun, but we want it to be productive. We want it to do what we need it to do for the time that we have to spend. So I'll begin here talking more about this program over the next 4 weeks until it gets launched. But if what I've talked about has really floated your boat, this program's definitely going to be for you. It's going to contain the exercise component, so the resistance training, working with Dynabands. There'll be stretching in there. There'll be core strength as well. And obviously all of it around addressing posture too, because posture is the foundation of everything. And there'll be nutritional recommendations as well. What kind of dietary protocol can you follow to optimize bone health? What things should we work to reduce or exclude? And if you want to, there'll be options for you to include supplements in your program if you choose. But like every nutritionist, I'm all about getting the foundations right. You must first start with the diet. You can't prop up a leaking boat by sticking a bit of paper in there. We've got to look at the diet first and how that's impacting our bone and our general health, and then we add supplements on as we see we might need them. I think that's me done. Are you pretty impressed that I remembered that number of different things all at once? And I'll see you soon.